Hi, folks. Welcome back to This Week, where we sit down with grassroots voices shaping the future of California politics. Today's guest is Shiva Bagheri. Shiva is a Christian conservative, a small business owner, a mother, and the founder of the Beverly Hills Freedom Rally. You may have seen her on Inside Edition or speaking out across LA County against lockdown mandates and government overreach. She's someone who stepped up when others stayed silent, and she paid the price for it. I was introduced to Shiva by Otto Kraus, who invited me to a rally she organized outside Mayor Karen Bass's mansion a few months ago, demanding accountability for the city's failure to respond to the catastrophic LA fires. That kind of courage, speaking truth directly to power, is what drives her activism. Shiva ran for California State Assembly in District 51 and currently serves as the chair for the LA GOP in that district. She's been a tireless advocate for parental rights, public safety, religious freedom, and restoring law and order to the state. And behind all of it, she's a woman of faith who's not afraid to call out corruption or speak truth, no matter the cost. Also joining us today is Toshio Onaga. Toshio has been with the Beverly Hills Freedom Rally since it began in 2020. He's currently finishing up a book exploring the connection between UFOs and the New World Order agenda. One of the chapters is titled Agents of Deception, and it dives into how misinformation is weaponized to manipulate the public. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Dennis, for having us.
Thank you for coming down. It's a hot day in LA today. It's like 100 degrees.
Yes.
But I wanted to ask you, because I see a lot of what you do online. I actually follow you on Instagram. I've been following you since I went to that Mayor Bass rally. But I see you all the time at UCLA. Can you tell me and the people at home, a little bit of what you're trying to do at UCLA and what the response has been?
Absolutely. What we're trying to do is, these young people are being brainwashed by their liberal professors. Mm-hmm. They're trying to make them have sympathy for terrorist organizations like Hamas. Mm-hmm. That's insane. And coming from a country that was overtaken by radical Islam, this is outrageous that this is happening in America.
And what country was that?
Iran.
Iran. Interesting.
So my family fled Iran, had me there. So I was born in Iran. So I'm an immigrant, but a legal one. I know that's hard for the liberals to understand. There's a difference between legal and illegal, okay? And, I actually think that the people that came into our country during Biden shouldn't just be called illegal aliens. They should be called illegal invaders. And they were being given our tax money, as we found out, because of lovely Elon Musk and his work. Yeah. And big balls, of course. Got to add big balls to that.
Doge, yeah.
Yeah, Doge. His name is Big Balls. Yeah. And so, I understand what's going on with these young people. Mm-hmm. And the only way we're going to be able to defeat the left at these universities is they need to hear another side.
The other side of the message, yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? I totally see so much social engineering going on there because they have their headphones on, their phones. Hear nothing until your liberal professor tells you to listen to them. Yeah. I mean, the social engineering is so scary to me. And a lot of people will just flick us off and they won't talk. And then if I just follow and I said, come on, let's have a conversation, that's now harassment. But flicking me off, that's okay. Yeah. And this is not how America was. America was about debate, and the best argument won. Mm-hmm. And it's shocking to me that this is the response from young people is, they say something that they don't even understand. Free Palestine. Well, what does that mean to you? Yeah. You ask them a question like that, they can't answer.
Because they just grab the slogan, they grab the bumper sticker, mantra, and they're just running with it because it sounds virtuous, right, on the surface. But when you look at what's actually happening, what does the government that runs Palestine, Hamas, what's in the charter? One of the number one things in the charter is to eliminate Israel.
Yes,
right,
correct.
And
death to America, death to Israel. That's what they were teaching the kids in Iran. But the difference between Iran and what they call the Palestinians is the Palestinians are more in a bubble than Iranians. Iranians, they travel a lot, okay? So they get to see the world. And they don't indoctrinate their children. Maybe at school they try to, but the parents are like, no. We don't want to kill anybody in anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, we're peaceful people.
Yeah.
But the government is evil. And this is why I hope there is some regime change.
Yeah.
But this is what happens. They take away your Second Amendment rights so you can't fight against the government, which the left is trying to do to us. And you look at the parallels between radical Islam and the left. There's so many.
A lot, yeah.
You know, censorship. You know, women can't speak in radical Islamic countries. Look at Afghanistan. They are wearing this black sheet over their whole body. They can't speak. And now they don't even want them to be educated in the medical industry. But what happens to a woman if she gets sick or needs surgery? She's not allowed to see a man because they can't see her.
Because of Sharia law, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
So guess what happens to the woman?
What happens?
She dies. You know, it's a death cult.
Yeah.
And
It's so funny to use that word because I just used it the other day. I said leftism is a death cult. People were like, prove it. I was like, abortion. That's
hello?
the first
Exactly.
most obvious one.
And I'm not just getting in conversations about radical Islam. These people, because, you know, I have other people that attend and they'll wear the MAGA hat and they'll say something about Trump. Like this one guy had mentioned that, you know, he's deporting citizens. And I'm like, name one.
They can't.
And he said, the 2-year-old. And I said, wait a second. So you're telling me that the 2-year-old should be here by him or herself? Because I don't know if I didn't watch the news last week. But the mother's saying that she wanted her child with, you know, her, obviously. So you're now asking to separate the parent with the child while you guys were screaming about that.
Yeah.
You know, it just shows you democracy, hypocrisy. And they're always like, we're always showing, you know, how their logic is not logical. It's not logical. It doesn't make any sense. Like, you know, so now you want them to separate the parent with the child because the child is a citizen at 2 years old. These are anchor babies.
Basically.
This is a loophole.
Yeah.
We had birthing houses here in California. Do you remember that when they got caught?
What happened?
Oh, yeah. They had these hotels, birthing hotels that people would pay $40,000 to go here and have their baby here so they can make them a citizen, you know?
Wow.
And, you know, a lot of people from countries that want to harm us, like China, CCP, I'm sure they want to do that a lot.
Yeah.
So they can infiltrate and radical Islam infiltrate.
And you know, you mentioned China. I think it was yesterday, I saw some study or some investigation reveal that China requests that every single student that they have here in an American university report back to them. So,
there you go.
Yeah.
So every student is working for the CCP.
Basically, yeah.
And this is very dangerous. You know what really pissed me off is we saw that movie, remember? Grid Down, Power Up?
Yeah.
And our transformers, we bought them from China and didn't even check to see if they have a back door.
I saw that, yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Our whole power grid is relying on the CCP. Are you kidding me?
On our enemy. We're basically empowering our enemy to crumble us from within.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here Trump is trying to do everything he can to stop this agenda because we've let the enemy within. And we know this. Look at that balloon that was flying around. I mean, how long was that up there? That should have been shot down right away.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This conversation kind of loops back to the UCLA thing because I remember distinctly one of the first people that got deported was this UCLA student who was later found out to be an agent for the CCP, or she was being funded by the CCP and she was organizing the protests at UCLA.
There you go. And it's all about following the money. And I guarantee you, I don't know if you saw the video where I'm talking to this guy about the 2-year-old. And this guy says, you know, I've just been hearing this for a second and I agree with him. And I said, because you're a liberal professor.
Yeah.
And he goes, no. And I said, well, are you a liberal professor? He goes, I'm a professor. I'm like, there you go.
Just do the math.
It's like the Holy Spirit told me right off the bat, like, this is a liberal professor. Like, I didn't, it's almost like it just blurted out of my mouth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's why you should be connected with the Holy Spirit because truth will be there. If you're in line with the Holy Spirit, you're going to get truth like this.
It'll show you, it'll reveal what's happening in front of you before you even know it yourself.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
what gets me is these homosexuals that are like, rah, rah, radical Islam, and they have no idea that they would be dead under Sharia law.
100% be
All of
getting
it. We
thrown
would
off
have,
of.
yeah, but throwing off buildings.
Yeah.
We'd have a pile of dead gay people from UCLA if Sharia law took over UCLA.
And you see no greater example of that than even Syria, right? Because when they took over Syria, they were going town by town, and they would just execute people. They would execute Christians, anybody who didn't fit the scope of what is acceptable in Islam. And I was even talking about this a few weeks ago because I think there's this 3-step process, right, in losing your freedom. I think that Syria is the ultimate end goal for if Islam takes over. England is like halfway there, and we're a step away from England.
Yes.
So that's how easy we can get to Syria and under.
Absolutely.
They're trying to build that town in Texas. You ever see that?
Oh, I heard about
town,
that.
Epic City or something that they want to put Sharia law in it.
Well, look at Dearborn, Michigan. I mean, you wouldn't think that you were in America if you stepped foot in Dearborn, Michigan. You'd be like, what the heck is going on here?
Yeah.
You know, and I'm sure all of the homosexual people are not so happy anymore after they allowed that.
What happened there?
Well, they tore down all of those, rainbow flags. And I'm sure they're like, oh, see, you guys were so tolerant with evil that it now it took over your evil, okay?
Yeah.
Because one evil, those that stand for nothing fall for anything.
Exactly.
And that's why you see, West Hollywood, which is like, Babylon,
Basically, Sodom and Gomorrah.
Sodom and Gomorrah. They are the most indoctrinated. It's hard to break through. But they don't realize that evil will eat itself.
Yeah.
And they will be the first to go. Because if you looked at the brown shirts, who started the brown shirts? A homosexual man. And what happened when Hitler got into power? He killed him. And he had what was called the Night of the Long Knives, and they were the first to go. Like, you can't even make this stuff up.
And the metaphor you just used of evil eating itself, on the internet, there's a big meme of like the left eats itself. They'll be virtue signaling or doing all these purity tests, and at some point you fall out of step with it. There's something happens and you're not with it anymore, and then you just get cannibalized by your own side. So yeah,
like the Jacobins, the French Revolution.
Yeah.
The Catholic Church started bowing down to the Jacobins, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, we don't want any religion. So again, evil will always eat itself. And that's why I saw the parallels. The left, they like to butcher children.
Yeah.
Radical Islam, they cut off the clitoris of little girls.
Oh, yeah.
There's so much connection there, pedophilia. And pedophilia is normalized because they're teaching little elementary kids about stuff that they should not know about.
Yeah, it really is strange when you just think about the context of having an adult who is not the parent of any of the children in the classroom making a decision to talk about their personal sexual habits and how those children fit into that. Right?
It's disgusting.
I think 20 years ago, it would have been straight up, you're on a sex offender list, you can't teach for the rest of your life.
Of course.
But nowadays it's just become, it's a slippery slope of, this is what we've fallen into. And it's crazy because when gay marriage was initially passed through the Supreme Court, Obergefell, the goalpost started shifting. It went from, we need gay marriage, and then it became trans rights, and then all of a sudden we're now talking to children about sex.
Yeah.
And converting children in school.
At least there's some groups like Gays Against Groomers that are standing up against it, saying no child should be sexualized. So that's good on them, And there's people like Brandon Strucka, who I did an event with. He's a gay hairdresser from New York, and he woke up and left the left. And I mean, it was crazy. West Hollywood, we told them ahead of time we need police presence. These people on the left are violent. Then the West Hollywood, whatever their magazine is called in West Hollywood, I forgot what it's called. I don't know if it's called Beverly Hills is Beverly Hills Courier, but West Hollywood, it might be called something else. They were trying to make it look like we were making it unsafe. Being there is unsafe.
So wait, let me just set up the context so people can understand. So you organized a rally, and Brendan Straka was one of the speakers. You had several other, I think, is it Emily?
Well,
Matt Gates was there too, right?
Huh?
Matt Gates was there too, right?
Yeah, Matt Gates. We had a lot of people. We had musicians. We had
Hyro.
Hyro just started. He's starting at CRA in Hollywood. So he's someone that's affiliated with Beverly Hills Freedom Rally. He does our flyers and stuff. And,
that's cool.
And he has his own news as well. Right Now Views. So he spoke. Joe Lazezo. He also ran for office, and he's the chair of, I think it's 55. I think
Assembly District 55?
Yeah, I think it's Assembly District 55. I could be wrong. Could be 56 or something. It's hard for me to keep track of all these assembly districts.
There's so many. They purposely make it complicated so people can't keep track of it.
Yeah, but we had a lot of great speakers, and he started in West Hollywood. I stayed in Beverly Hills because, honestly, I don't trust the police because of who runs the police in West Hollywood.
Gotcha.
And for good reason, because they did $2,000 worth of damage to people's cars. They were stealing their flags and taking knives to their tires and popping their tires. I mean,
who the counter protesters?
Yes, the counter protesters. You know, the people that they call mostly peaceful.
Yeah.
No, they're not. They're violent.
Were they Antifa?
Of course.
Yeah.
It's like whatever. Antifa, BLM, pro-Palestinians are the same people. They're like Vishal and Kate Burns. We know some of these people by name.
Yeah.
I'm on their hit list. So
Yeah.
I just laugh. I'm like, and sadly, a lot of them come from the foster care system. That's something the Holy Spirit told me during a Babies Lives Matter rally. I'm telling you, this is why I believe in God, because God will tell me something. And I was like, I feel bad for you guys. I know that many of you come from the foster care system. And this one girl comes up to me and she's like, she can't believe that I know this. So first off, she's like kind of shocked. She goes, but my mother did all this stuff to me. And I said, and I'm sorry that your mother was horrible to you. But just because your mother was horrible to you doesn't mean that these people aren't horrible too. They brainwash you to believe that you're a mistake. That is evil.
Yeah.
God made you beautifully and wonderfully. And you should never think that you're a mistake and think you have to butcher yourself to be something that you will never be.
Yeah.
Because that is a lie. And these people literally, the people on the top literally believe in Lucifer. That's who they believe in.
How did she take that message?
She was like, it de-escalate things, and she just kind of walked away. But I will tell you what was so great about that rally, the last one I went to, Babies Lives Matter rally, was this girl, Kayla, came up to me and she goes, I just want to thank you. I started watching your live feeds, and I used to be on the left. I was actually a counter protester about, I guess now it's 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I said, first off, where did you get radicalized? And she said, online. So online radicalized her to think, oh yeah, women's rights is killing babies. You know what I mean? Well, my friend Felicia and her were battling. It was kind of interesting to see them on this video battling. Like, when you're there, you don't really watch what's going on. And then I got to see it on a video. Well, apparently she was told by all her other lefty friends that I'm a racist bigot, right? So she decided to follow me on Instagram.
And see for herself.
Yeah. And then I educated her about Margaret Sanger, who was a racist eugenist that wanted to get rid of the blacks, the Jews, and the Slavs. And that's through eugenics, through sterilization, through abortion.
Planned Parenthood.
Planned Parenthood. She was the founder of Planned Parenthood. And Hitler even wrote her a letter thanking her for the idea of eugenics.
Yeah.
These are all facts.
Yeah.
But of course, the left, a lot of them, these lefties, don't know this stuff because they're kind of victims to the indoctrination, either at school, and in this case was the foster care system, because they find vulnerable young people and they brainwash them. So Kayla was told I was a racist bigot, learned all of this stuff. She came up to me and thanked me, and she also said that she gave her life to Jesus Christ.
Wow.
And not only that, she started a conservative pro-life organization at her college.
Wow.
And was raising money for that.
Yeah.
And so we turned a bad activist into a good activist.
That's great.
I would say God did that. That was definitely a God thing, for sure.
That's amazing. I mean, you're seeing that happen more and more. I feel like there are more and more people leaving the left because, like we talked a moment ago, it's a death cult. Like the logical end is you either end up taking your life or you take somebody else's. I don't know how it could end. That's why they feel so comfortable justifying violence and like bombing Teslas and doing everything they've been doing. You know, they'll hide behind the moral virtue of like, oh, we're looking out for everybody, but at the end of the day, they want to see the whole world burn.
Of course. And what's so crazy is all these people that I see with Teslas, and they've got like those bumper stickers that are like, Elon.
Yeah.
And I can't help it. I have to get my bullhorn out. And I'm like, I bet you feel real stupid being like, you know, sucked into buying an electric car that's terrible for the environment, by the way, you know, with that uranium being dug out of the earth and those batteries are so bad for the environment.
They can't dispose of them. There isn't they haven't figured out a good way to dispose of those batteries, and that is going to be a problem. And that doesn't even take into account the state wants everybody to convert to electric by 2035 or something.
Well, really what it is it's so expensive, right?
Yeah.
Most people wouldn't be able to do that. They just want us on public transit. They want us to be freaking slaves to the government.
Basically,
and that's another thing that I found out too. I chat GBT'd this, you know, was I found out that in our founding, we only had 5 agencies. Guess how many now we have government
like 200
agencies?
something?
430 agencies.
Talk about government bloat. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that a self-governing government? No, we're not self-governing anymore with 430 agencies. It's time to freaking trim the fat. So thank you, Elon. Keep it up. Keep up the good work.
And it's interesting too because it's not even when it comes to the electric mandate, it's not even sustainable for the grid. We already have blackouts over the summer. We have price hikes, different price surging, all that stuff happening throughout the day. Like it's 100 degrees. You can't keep your air running because you'll pay 4 times as much. And they're talking about it going even further up, right? And all of a sudden now we're supposed to have electric cars.
It's crazy.
It's calculated, like you said, because they want us all in public transportation.
Well, that's it. They want to impoverish us. Remember the World Economic Forum? You'll own nothing and be happy about it. You know, it's like, no, and eat bugs. I'm not eating bugs. Maybe that's what Survivor and all these movies, like I've noticed it. Yeah, it's programming, it's grooming. And that's why, you know, even when they were doing the masking, I said the masking's grooming for the vaccine. And it's not even going to be a vaccine, you know?
And I was even having this discussion with my mom the other day about it. The rollout. My mom's really frustrated. My dad has Alzheimer's, and my mom's just very frustrated. She has been trying to figure out a way to give him a treatment that can help him, right? And I told her, I said, Mom, you don't understand. The pharmaceutical industry has no interest in finding cures. They want you to just be treating for the rest of your life. You know, like. Why was it that with COVID they were able to churn out a vaccine in 6-7 months, right?
Yes.
But for AIDS, that's been around for however long, they can't do it. For cancer, they can't find a cure for cancer. For Alzheimer's, other diseases, they can't because they want you there just getting the treatment so you're a lifelong customer. Right?
And we had treatment. It was called hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, steroids. There was the other things. But they could not make it an emergency use authorization if they had a cure. And also the mask was an EUA. So anybody telling you to wear a mask, they're telling you to be a guinea pig.
Yeah.
And they can't do that. That's illegal. That's why we fought so hard.
What's an EUA?
Emergency use authorization.
Huh.
You cannot force someone to be part of an experiment. That is illegal.
It's so crazy. And when you look back on it, I remember when that documentary came out, the Plandemic documentary, and how they like censored it. It like disappeared within like hours from the internet. I had to dig through. I ended up finding it and watching it, and a lot of it was very informative. You know, it's just so crazy how much they felt the need to control the narrative around that conversation, and how nowadays we're seeing people who have legitimate vaccine injuries.
Oh yeah, or dead. A lot of people are dead.
A lot of people are dead.
I can show you a picture off my phone. My friend Adi. She had a very dear friend that died. I think she was, 31 years old. And you wouldn't believe what happened to her. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. So it started out with like blood clots in her feet. She had 2, by the way, 2 shots. And then her whole foot like turned into like pus and these, I mean, like both of her feet. And of course, the hospital said, no, it's not because of the shots. Well, how do you know that?
Yeah.
She wasn't like this before. She took 2 shots, and now this is happening to her body.
Yeah.
Clearly, that's the only thing she changed.
Yeah.
And you're saying that that's not what happened. So that means that the hospital did not report that, and they're supposed to report injury. And then secondly, they made excuse, said, no, it wasn't that, sent her home, and her brother found her dead in her kitchen floor.
So how long between going to the hospital and dying?
Like a few days later.
A few days later.
And I mean, if you look at it, why would you release that woman out of the hospital with that kind of injury?
And just looking at it kind of anecdotally, just based off what we do know scientifically that COVID shots were doing, the myocarditis thing with young men.
And blood clots.
Blood clots.
And it's blood clots in her feet. That's how it started. And I'm like, come on now.
Yeah, I used to work at a nutrition store in Van Nuys, and nurses would come in. Like a few of them came in, and they said, yeah, they're not able to talk about these things because their job's on jeopardy.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were talking to the supervisor because he knows a lot about health, so they're always talking to him about it. Like, yeah, they're so frustrated because people are dying from the shots, but they go on social media about it. They're gonna really target you. So,
yeah, and not just that. I mean, it was even, what was the lawsuit? I forget what the lawsuit is that Facebook got sued. I don't remember specifically what the lawsuit was, but they ended up releasing all of their back channel communications with the Biden administration, and they showed that their administration was pressuring them to suppress speech that was against the vaccine. Because their justification was like, oh, this is going to hurt the rollout. Oh, this is a public safety issue, And
then they're the ones that say that they hate, corporations while they're bowing down to the worst corporation, which is Big Pharma.
And you look at the top congressional representatives who have received over time the most money from Big Pharma out of the top 10, 12. All Democrats, most of them. Maybe there's like 1 or 2 Republicans in there, but like even Bernie Sanders is like, over the last 35 years, he's received like $3-4 million from them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's democracy hypocrisy once again, you know? That's why I always tell people we are not a democracy. Actually, our founding fathers were pretty clear that we're not a democracy.
We're a constitutional republic.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I said, when you put your hand over your heart, when you do the Pledge of Allegiance, do you say, and to the democracy for which it stands? I don't think so. What does our California flag say?
California Republic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But this is the lies. Like, I mean... that's one thing is you plant the seed of one lie and they go, okay. Like the guy I ran against, Rick Chavez-Zabur, the worst legislator.
And this is for city council?
No, this was not city council. I ran for city council too. This is for assembly, district 51 state assembly. State assembly, just for people that don't know, you're the legislative body of California. So you think of Congress, it's like Congress for California, okay? And he had the bill that he co-authored, Prop 47, enabling criminals. They could steal $950 worth of merchandise and only get a citation.
Made a misdemeanor, basically.
Yes, correct, like a slap on the wrist.
Yeah.
The funny thing is he wanted to call it the Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Act. If that isn't deceptive, I don't know what is.
It's a euphemism. They love those.
Yeah, and what's so crazy about it is that overwhelmingly people voted for Prop 36, which overturns a lot of Prop 47. Yet he got almost 75% of the vote. Or maybe he did get 70. I think actually he did get 75% of the vote.
Yeah, and he's the one who authored the bill.
Here's the disconnect. So people should never vote for those that if you go to the website and all of these unions are backing this person, because he isn't going to work for you. He's going to work for the unions. And this is what this guy is doing. He's working for the unions, which are like mafia, okay? They're the ones that are like, yeah, you need our protection. And remember...
It's like a racket.
Yeah, it's a racket. And remember, there was a ruling, Ask Me, I think it's called AS... I got to look it up.
Yeah.
But actually, I got ChatGPTs.
Ask ChatGPT.
Yeah, ChatGPT knows everything. Here we go. The Supreme Court... in 2018 decision in Janus versus it's AFS CME significantly altered the financial dynamics between public sector unions and non-union employees because they were forcing the non-union employees to pay fees. You can't do that.
So wait, how are they forcing non-union? Oh, the
unions, because they were saying, well, you have to still pay our fee even though you're not in the union. Like, yeah, they were doing that.
And what was the logic? They wouldn't have access to certain services at work, or
I don't know. They're probably just like pressuring him, like a mafia. It's like mafia.
It's interesting when it comes to the voting thing that you just mentioned. I think a lot of people just see the ballot and they'll see like a letter next to it, and just purely based on, oh, this guy's a Democrat. Oh, he aligns with what I believe in.
Yes.
Or this person's a Republican. Oh, they're probably racist or bigoted or whatever it is a public perception is. And it's unfortunate that Democrats have very successfully branded Republicans as like the worst thing in the world.
Exactly.
Right? And a lot of it is just this cartoonish idea of who Republicans are. And it's interesting that we were just talking about you being at these college campuses and talking to people, and people like kind of finding a middle ground and seeing that, oh, wow, so this person actually cares about the country as much as I do, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's ultimately how we turn this narrative around is just letting people understand that we as Republicans, we care as much about the country as you do. You just have the worst ideas for it.
Well, actually, they don't even care about the country.
Yeah.
This one girl that was flicking me off, I said, let's have a conversation or something. And I said, we have the best country in the world if we can keep it.
Yeah.
But the enemy's within. And she goes, you think this is the best country in the world? And I said, absolutely. This is why everybody wants to be here.
That's so crazy. Whenever I see...
They're literally... They're taught not to like themselves.
Yeah.
That they're a mistake. They're taught not to like the country. That's why they burn the flag. One time they came to our rally and they freaking burned their flag. Remember? Were you at that one?
No, I wasn't.
Okay, there was one rally at Beverly Hills Freedom Rally that these lefties grabbed the flag and they torched it, and I was so mad. I was like, then don't be here. Like nobody's keeping you here. If you don't want to be here, I'm sure there's other countries that are communist that would love for you to be a communist slave there.
For you to go there, stand on the bread line and work for the rest of your life for the government.
Yeah.
I think the through line with a lot of these interviews that I've been doing, I'm an immigrant myself from Brazil.
Oh,
so
cool.
So I've been speaking to a lot of people from different backgrounds, and the through line from my perspective of people who are really rising within, I'd say that I don't even want to say within the Republican Party, but within the conservative movement in California, a lot of us grew up outside of America. We saw what these other countries can, fall down into very quickly when socialism, communism, or Islamic rule come into play. And we're here. We're in the best country in the world. America is objectively the greatest country in the world.
It is.
And I don't want America to become Brazil.
Exactly. And I don't want America to become Iran.
Exactly.
So we understand this because our family and ourselves. I mean, I was a baby, but I knew what was going on, and I found out through my parents what was happening. I remember my father telling me some gal was just sunbathing in her own backyard and she got stoned to death in Iran.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, imagine that. I go and lay out in front of my own complex to get some sun because I don't have a pool. I'm sure my neighbors think I'm like white trash, but I love the sun, you know? And imagine if I lived in Iran, I would have been dead long ago with my big mouth. And
that makes absolute sense in the context of like people think America is this oppressive country, like imperialistic. The Democrats think America is this oppressive, imperialistic country. You don't have any freedoms here. And you can't even go and do the most basic thing, which is to sunbathe.
Exactly.
Without getting your life taken from you.
Exactly. And this is what was crazy about this black girl. So this black girl that wears a half top and that's like, free Palestine. I said, if you wore that half top in Gaza, you'd be raped, tortured, murdered. And then they'd parade your dead body around celebrating your death.
Yeah.
I tried to show her this video, of the people and women in Afghanistan, right? But it's like fully covered, cannot speak, cannot go to school. And I said, this is what slavery looks like. She goes, don't talk to me about slavery. And I was like, what, you were a slave?
Yeah.
I go, you have no idea. I came from a country that they treat women like garbage.
Yeah.
And I have a half sister that lives there. So you were never a slave.
Yeah.
Like this thing of, oh, I'm black, so I'm a victim.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
You're not a victim. You're going to one of the best schools, okay? Which I'm not going to probably afford to put my kid in, which I wouldn't do anyway, because now that I know that they're indoctrinating kids, I'll make sure she goes to a trade school.
Yeah.
Get a trade, make some money. Stay away from those freaking liberal professors, because I do not want my kid brainwashed.
I agree with that 100%. And I've had this conversation with other people too, that unfortunately the narrative around trade schools, they've been put down as though it's like a lesser education and you have to go to a 4-year college. And what do you really get out of a 4-year college? It's like you said, indoctrination. You get deep into debt, and then all of a sudden you're working at McDonald's or somewhere else. Not that those jobs are bad, but you've got this education that you're supposed to be, you know, somewhere
elevated, yes.
But you end up right where you would have been if you had just worked your way up 4 years ago. But now you have like $100,000 worth of debt.
Exactly. It's stupid.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what they want.
Yeah.
This is the slavery they want us in.
Yeah.
They want us, you know, to be in debt at the banks. You know, all of this, be in debt with your car. This is why I paid off my car.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, I'd rather wait till I can pay for a car than to be in debt. You know,
Yeah.
just less debt for me keeps me happier. You know, I'm my 800 credit score, and I'm very happy. You know,
Yeah.
and I won't own anything until I can go and
Get it. Well, yeah.
because I just don't want to. I don't want to be in debt like that. I just don't want.
And they
that.
also take God out of schools, you know, and that's the,
Yeah,
that's the
that is
biggest
true.
thing, and I think that's the core issue because, you know, at the counter protesters, you know, I asked them, the Antifa people, they're like, who wishes their parents aborted them, and you know, a third of them would raise their hand.
Which
you
is
know,
scary.
and I get it. I mean,
That's
some of them,
crazy.
yeah, and some of them they're just doing that just you know, just for the hell of it. But
And remember the
but
one that had the
there is
Baphomet flag?
yeah,
There's
and
a
they
guy-
have the pentagram. A lot of them have
Yeah.
it on the red pentagram spray painted on their umbrellas, and you know, it is a spirit of destruction that they're giving these. You know, it's the socialism. There's a reason why most socialists are atheists. You know, it's replacing God with the state of the mind of man, and once you know. You abolish whatever you can, you know, the family, you know, government, you know, religion, and then once you do that, you're trying to bring this great utopia on earth. But then, what's the point of that in the first place if you're just going to die and there's nothing after life?
Yeah.
You know, so they have this nihilistic view.
And they
So-
emasculate the men.
Yeah,
So if you
emasculation and-
emasculate the men, they're not going to protect their country.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, take out, abolish all borders. You know, one world government, one world religion. You know, I mean, religion. I mean, it's not even religion anymore because they don't believe in God. But
Well, it's like
just
paganism. It's worshiping
It's
the
a,
earth.
it's a pagan.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like this humanist.
It's a
you're like,
humanist-
you humanist, and it sounds like it's a compassionate thing, but
It's a form of religion,
not,
but yeah,
yeah.
it's a humanist atheistic system that they're bringing out here on earth. So they're trying to create heaven on earth, whether as
they're
opposed
actually
to-
creating hell. That's what
Yes,
that
it
is.
is
Yeah.
hell.
Well, yeah,
'Cause
but
it's only
from
more
their
suffering. It's
Yes,
but from
exactly.
their mind, they're destroying everything that whether it's patriarchy or religion or anything, you know, various aspects of whatever whatever that individual believes is the agent of oppression, you know, is oppressing them. And once they abolish all that, then they can bring in a new utopia, you know. But it's all outside of God, you know. It's about man, not God. So they're replacing God with man in our universe.
Or government, you know, worshiping the government, not
Well, yeah,
not
it's like,
God.
you know, like trust the science. That's
Yeah.
Yes.
you know, and
then Fauci called himself science. Remember
yeah,
that?
like if you're against me, you're against science or something like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's the mind of man over God, I think, and they're really trying to push that.
But you know, I think it goes back, and I've thought about this a lot. I think we're living like in a parallel time to Ezekiel and Jeremiah, like what's happening in those two books, where basically Israel crumbles from within. Like God kind of prophesizes that through them, right? And then
Babylon for 70 years.
exactly, and then but I don't think God is so powerful. He could just end all that with a snap of the finger, right? He gives us the free will to make a choice. So, which is what gives me hope that at some point there's going to be the other side of the coin, right?
Well, it's happening. I mean,
Yeah.
look at all these people being baptized in California lately.
Yeah, I see that.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
There is a revival coming, a God revival. And, they thrusted this satanic religion onto our kids.
Mm-hmm.
And then they scream separation of church and state.
Yeah.
Well, this is a religion.
It is.
Leftism is a religion.
If you
it's
have
a satanic one.
If you have a pride flag in your classroom, that's your religion.
Religion,
It's
correct. It is. It's a satanic religion.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody that reads the Bible will see that everything that's happening is in the Bible.
Exactly.
Like 2 Timothy. I think it's 2 Timothy, what is it, chapter 3? It's like saying that, people are not going to respect their parents. There's going to be lawlessness. All of this stuff is happening.
Yeah.
But there's also people seeing it now, and they're coming to the Lord. So that's the good news.
Well, thank God for that.
Yes.
So wait, I do want to talk about because you ran for city council and you ran for state assembly as well.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit of how those runs were and how differently? And I imagine that as a conservative, you're getting a different kind of pushback because there is a very elaborate Democrat system to get these candidates elected. Like you could literally be a houseplant and they got the money to push you.
Of course. Like look at AOC. She was a bartender.
Bartender, yeah.
And she auditioned out of 10,000 people with the Democrat socialist, and they picked her. Like,
Yeah.
oh, she's cute and it's bubbly and she can dance,
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I had some interesting things happen when I was running. There was someone that I felt like was from the mafia.
Really?
Was like saying, I can get you all this money. And he's like, get me in your meetings. And I was like, the Holy Spirit is like, get away from this guy.
Uh-huh.
And so I was like, I didn't want any money from him. I didn't want anything. I just didn't talk to him after that. I was like, I felt like he was mafia. The run was interesting because, I'm not raising a lot of money. Mm-hmm. It's interesting too, because there's a lot of family connections. Mm-hmm. Like, we have a Khazarian that's, I think, wait, what was her name? Oh my gosh, the mayor right now. I think it's Khazarian. Like, it's a wealthy family. It's one of the wealthy families.
In Glendale?
No, you know what? Let me just ask.
Okay.
Let's ask Siri. I forgot her name. I can't believe it. I ran against her and I can't remember her name. Who is the mayor of Beverly Hills? No, that was the old mayor, Lester Friedman. We went to his house, actually.
Really?
During the rally, because there was a bomb scare. Uh-huh. And I know this guy was bragging about going to Biden's, inauguration. Mm-hmm. I knew he was a total lefty, okay? Mm-hmm. And, he wasn't standing up for any of our businesses staying open and this. And these people, they're just, they wanted to get us out of the park. So they thought, oh, let's do a bomb scare. And so we marched to his house and we did like a rally there.
Yeah.
And then he made it sound like he was a victim. Oh, somebody said, that I was Hitler or something. And my family fled, Nazi Germany. They always do. It's like, oh, poor me, right?
Yeah.
Dude, if it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it's usually a duck.
Yeah.
You're the one that's not standing up for our businesses and, our religious organizations being shut down.
Yeah.
That's tyranny. So if somebody's calling you that name, and it wasn't me, but he was trying to make it look like, oh, because it was in my group saying that. I said, I didn't say that. Uh-huh. And I said, it's called freedom of speech. If you don't like it, you shouldn't live here. Mm-hmm. You didn't have a city council meeting, so we had to come to your house. Mm-hmm. You should have had city council meetings and stopped not having them over a virus that was like 0.01 death rate, whatever it was.
So just to bring it back to the run.
Okay, the run. Sorry, I got off on that. I was like, I do that. I get into what I felt during that time. The run was interesting. I was somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
I didn't raise a lot of money, but for the amount of money that I had, I did pretty well.
Yeah.
Like if people would have just invested in me, I could have done a lot better. It's just I couldn't give flyers to everybody. Like I got like 3 flyers from each candidate almost that won the race. I couldn't even get one flyer to each person in my district because I didn't have the money.
I've seen that's the dynamic that I've seen with a lot of Republican candidates is just it's a lot of it is just very independently run. You kind of have to do everything yourself. You have to do the fundraising yourself.
I did.
You got to kind of figure out the ropes. And the Democrats have this system which is very, very elaborate.
Very organized.
Well, and they were using our money.
Really?
We were through Act Blue. Remember all that money that went to Ukraine?
Yeah.
And then Zelensky invested in that cryptocurrency that went bust. And what was that cryptocurrency doing? It was investing in Act Blue to get the Democrats elected. So that was called money laundering.
And they do it all the time. I mean, when they they'll fundraise, they'll like attach a cause to it. But the link goes to Act Blue, so and they take a percentage.
Yes.
So you may be donating the money towards whatever liberal cause you want to be donating to, or even sometimes it's a broad cause. And then you see the transaction fee, Act Blue. I want to understand your perspective as a candidate, right? Why do you think the Democrats have been able to build such an effective machine, and the Republicans, we're still kind of like getting everything together? Do you think it's just the national party at the federal level isn't focusing on California because they feel like it's just the state's far gone, or what do you think is happening?
Well, that's one of the reasons, people don't like to invest in something that they don't see is going to have any fruit. And people have to get out of this notion though, because if you play to lose, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
You got to play to win. I raised about $7,000, but I'm going against a guy that had $900,000.
Yeah.
And also there are people that have money and and they should understand that people like me is in the long run going to save them money. And if they invest in someone like me, then I'm going to help lower their taxes and stop all these regulations. And we need to clip down the government. You know what really was upsetting when I was running for city council is they had this like meeting telling us how many more employees that they're going to employ to the Beverly Hills government. I'm thinking, we don't need all these people. First off, the people that are there are not really doing their job. You're supposed to be about health, and you don't even know the Pfizer study that I read. Like, you're not doing your job.
Yeah.
Why are we paying these people to not do their job?
And a lot of them are making hand over fist.
Exactly.
There's so much
have
money.
you looked them up? Have you looked up?
They're making like $250,000 a year.
Oh,
right?
yeah. And actually more than that. Like, look at Barbara Ferrer. I think she makes more money than the president. And
Really?
she's a non-elected bureaucrat. I looked at all of these bureaucrats in Los Angeles. I have a list somewhere that I printed up, and I couldn't believe it. It was like the lowest paid person was like $300,000. That's insane.
And how do they justify that? What's the logic around paying these people so much?
There is no logic. I really don't think there is. I think they want to bankrupt our country. They want to weaken us from within. And they think that the more they spend, the more weak we'll become, and we'll become a globalist one world government. It's problem, reaction, solution.
Yeah.
They create the problem. Like, for instance, Rick Chavez Zabur, promoting law and order, not promoting law and order, promoting lawlessness.
Lawlessness.
And then he's also promoting the sexualization and the indoctrination of our children, thinking that they're a mistake. So we've got broken people.
Yeah.
And they're literally turning our children into eunuchs, cutting off their penis. Who were the eunuchs? They were slaves to the monarchy, right? And they're doing that. And so you have a bunch of broken people. You have more lawlessness. So what do you need? You bigger government. And they take away our rights that way. So it's problem, reaction, we react. And then they say, oh, well, give us more of your money and we'll solve the problem.
Yeah.
But then the problem gets worse. They take more of our rights away, take more of our money away, and it's a racket. It's like it just keeps happening. It's a cycle. And it never gets fixed.
Yeah.
Because we've given the Democrats, 50 years now to fix problems?
Basically, they've had the equivalent of a dictatorship in California. Most countries, like if California were its own independent state outside of America, it would be a third world yeah,
it is.
Just like the voting, right? Like the presidential election, like They called California before they even had 15% of the votes counted or something.
Yeah.
Like that?
That is crazy.
Yeah.
And they think we're stupid. I remember on the ticker tape, both times, like during President Trump's run with Biden, it showed the amount that Trump had and then Biden. And all of a sudden, the ticker tape, you see the switch where they literally took votes from Biden or Trump and given them to Biden right on the ticker tape. They did the same thing during when Larry Elder and Newsom.
For the recall?
Yeah, it was boom. Like something, it was like, I just saw this flip.
Yeah.
And I was like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And that's the Dominion voting system with Smartmatic, obviously.
Yeah.
And I remember when CNN had done this thing about the Dominion voting system that got Hugo Chavez in power. But then they're like, oh no, the Dominion is perfect. It's like, you guys reported this. This was your report.
It's like they'll talk about it in the context of something else, and then when it serves their agenda, they'll be like, oh no, that didn't happen.
Well, just like they said, President Trump stole the election the first time.
Now, they're saying this now too. They're trying to say that he stole it now. That's a
They're
narrative
coming out with it now.
Yeah, there's a narrative that you'll see Democrats saying on social media that.
And then you
he
show
stole it.
the map.
Yeah.
And where there's bad voting, you don't need a voting ID in these states.
Every state that's blue.
That was the only ones that Harris won were the ones that had weak voting ID laws.
Yeah.
They were either no voter ID at all, or it was just okay, you could just show your freaking, college campus, ID or something,
Even here, to vote here, and I was surprised because I voted in New York, the last one, and it was to get my ballot, and it was a paper ballot. They had to check my ID. They had to check the they had to see. I guess it was one proof of whatever of where I reside at. Here, I just came up, said my name. They looked on the roll. They said, "Okay, sign here." I was like, "You're not going to check my ID?" And she was like, "No, I don't have to. It's against the law."
I tried showing the lady my ID, and they're like, no, I don't want
Yeah.
to. They refuse to look at it.
Yeah.
Right there shows you that there's massive fraud here. Actually, one of my neighbors was working a polling station, and she told me that one of the days that she was working, that 1/3 of the people that came in, they said that someone had already cast a vote for them. 1/3. At one polling station.
So what do you do in that situation?
Well, she said that she, called the FBI, but the FBI was under the Biden regime. I'm sure they just tossed that information.
Yeah.
Just like how they tried to get rid of, 1 terabyte of information for this. I forgot what this agency was. It was something like Peace something, but they found all these guns and they found out that they were actually giving money to the Taliban.
Oh, I think I saw something.
Do you
about
remember that?
It was a while ago,
I saw it last week, but things pop up.
Yeah.
And that's how I saw it. But I was going to show you. I even made my own little. Ooh, why is it saying U.S.?
Yeah, we need voter ID laws.
Yeah, that's
that's what Carl DeMaio wants to do,
I saw
and I'm
that,
going to be one of the people that's collecting signatures to get that on the ballot. Because who wouldn't want a voter ID unless you are someone that is illegal?
Well, you need ID to buy a pack of cigarettes. Why would you not need an ID to vote?
They might say you only you have to have your real ID to vote. They might go with that.
And they're defranchising, legal voters. That's really what it is.
Yeah.
They want to always say that we're doing that. No, you guys are doing it by not allowing us to prove that we are who we are.
Yeah.
That's just crazy.
It's their way of making sure that they can do a demographic version of gerrymandering, because they can let all of these people illegally come into the country. They'll ship them to different parts, like they did with Ohio, where they shipped all of those Haitian immigrants down to that specific area in Ohio. It's all calculated so they can, break a red state or turn it into a blue lock state, which is kind of like how California is.
That's my meme I did. This is my own. I put it together showing that the greener it is, that's no voter ID law. And the blue over there is
you
what
show
the
it to
Democrats.
the camera over here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, which one? This one?
Yeah. That. Yeah. Here, I can hold it up.
Okay, there.
So, yeah. That's interesting.
So see, look at the very green area and where coming.
It's all good. Yeah, and the thing is, I know Republicans are working on the SAFE Act, which would kind of resolve it on the federal level, but I just don't see an urgency around it.
Yeah, there's some things that I am very critical about what's going on. Like this Epstein file. When are we gonna see who were raping children?
Yeah.
I mean, I want to know who is raping children. So who's being blackmailed? Probably Rosie O'Donnell.
Yeah.
Since she,
Wait,
yeah,
sorry I don't want to derail what you're saying, but you brought it up the Rosie thing, and you have like a special Rosie connection. So I want to make sure we hit that before and then I want to make sure we hit his book too.
Okay.
So tell us
good.
about your Rosie O'Donnell story.
Okay, I worked at this place called Robertson Art Zone, and I was like renting space from someone that was renting the space. You know what I mean? So it's like, what would you call that?
Well, you're subleasing.
Subleasing, but
Yeah.
I'm not subleasing. I'm subleasing.
Gotcha.
Yes. And when the left found out that was my school, they were like calling and threatening and saying, "Oh, why you have this woman there? She's a bigot." You know what I mean? All of the attacks to the lady that's renting from me. Then Rosie O'Donnell said that she was gonna, rent out this rinky-dink art studio. Like, what would Rosie be doing with this rinky-dink art studio, right?
Yeah.
That she was gonna give them all this money, and then she backs out last minute saying it was because of me.
Wow.
Yeah, and then they were like, this is just too much, and I understood because these people are crazy. They're like, these people, threaten to bomb places. I mean, this is how sick they are.
Well, they actually do bomb places.
And these are children, these are children. But again, they don't care about kids. That's why they abort even after they're born. They're like killing babies after they're born. Like where Tim Waltz is from.
Yeah.
I'm sure in California they're doing it too. Because they want to organ traffic. That's really what it's all about.
Yeah, and I mean, these people have admitted it on camera. The governor of Virginia at that, what was it, like 4 or 5 years ago, where he talked about how they would smother a child.
Yeah,
if
like
it was,
we'll keep it comfortable,
yeah,
and
exactly.
then the doctor and they'll figure out what they want to do. The baby's born.
Yeah, it's a person. You're just talking about murdering an innocent
baby.
life. Yeah.
Yes, I mean it's just sickening. It's like they have no value of life except for themselves. It's narcissism too.
Yeah.
And I get even these college students will come up to me. Well, what if the girl's raped? And I said, okay, let's go with that. Who is the one doing the assault? Is it the rapist or is it the baby? Mm-hmm. So I believe in capital punishment for the rapist.
Yeah.
I totally am down with that. Mm-hmm. But the innocent baby did nothing.
Yeah.
Okay? And a life, no matter how you get that life, to me is a gift.
Exactly.
It's a gift from God. Mm-hmm. So even though that happened, you can think of this as a silver lining, and now you're going to bring a baby that's part of you into this world.
Yeah.
And then I ask him this question. Say that I'm a product of rape. Does that make my life any less valuable than yours?
Or can anybody look at any person and know that that's their origin story, basically?
Yeah, exactly. And then they always go into this thing, well, this is what happens to... I said, are you playing God right now?
Yeah.
Because it sounds like you're playing God. You know exactly what's going to happen. Actually, there was a story about this woman that was abducted by a man, and she had 2 children with him, okay? She was kidnapped by him. She said the only thing that kept her alive was being a mother. And then she ended up escaping with her children. She went to college, and their kids are, all of them are doing well. Mm-hmm. And also she was a believer in God. Mm-hmm. So God kept her safe in a way that she didn't die, her children didn't die, and she got out of that terrible mess. Now, this is why I have such an issue with leftism. Mm-hmm. I went to a school board meeting, and we had some black women in there that were like the oppressed black women, not like the people that come to my rallies, okay?
Yeah.
And they love to like do this whole thing like victimhood. And I had to say something. I said, you know what? God doesn't make victims. Mm-hmm. God makes victors. It's evil to tell a white child that you're an oppressor, and evil to tell a black girl that you're oppressed because they're keeping that child down.
Yeah.
And none of us are oppressed. there's going to be tribulation. God said there's going to be tribulation, but it's how we deal with that tribulation, you know? And that's what makes us strong people is that, I mean, I've gone through a lot. Death threats, they threatened to rape my child. I mean, these people were sick, okay? Sick. And you know what I did? I prayed for them. I prayed and I said, God, whatever that demonic spirit that's inside them, I hope it's broken in your name. You know,
And
convict their heart. Let them see you in dreams. Because I you know, that's the only they're under a curse. I don't want to curse them more.
Exactly.
We don't want to double curse them.
And
They're already cursed, you know?
Yeah. And that's why, like, you got to let God fight your battles. There's no way to fight somebody like that because they're lost, like you said. They're like taking, you know, I think it goes beyond just what we see. What's actually happening is this like pretty profound spiritual battle, you know, for the soul, not just of this country, of the world, but, you know, for everybody's soul. And, you know, a lot of people are just walking. They think that they're doing the right thing because they've been sold this moral argument from the left, but they're actually perpetrating a whole lot of evil that, you know, 100 years from now, if history is actually looking at things from the right angle, they're going to be the people that they hate the most now. They're going to be what they think is evil. That's how they're going to be seen. You know?
Absolutely. Well, think about it this way. You're telling some child they can't. We learned in, you know, my generation, you don't ever tell a child they can't. You know what I mean? Because you're doing that. You're the oppressor by saying that. And that's what the leftism is. It's they're oppressing people by mind, you know, doing a mind on them, you know?
Yeah.
Mind
really
manipulation. Sick. And this is also MK Ultra. If you look at Operation MK Ultra, you know what that is?
Yeah, it's an intelligence operation. Yeah.
Yeah. Those under the influence are easy to influence. So what do they want to do? They want more people to be on pharmaceuticals and on all these drugs. Like, you look at a lot of these shootings. Why don't they ask the question, were they on something? I bet you 99.9% of the time they're on some kind of drug.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
When I was a dance teacher, when I started, children didn't seem so dysfunctional. You know, 5 years later, I started seeing kind of some weird behavior, like shaking and weird behavior. 10 years later, I'm starting to see a lot of that behavior, a lot more. And 15 years later, I'm like, a lot of these kids, it's like, you know, maybe 1/3 of the kids, there's something wrong with them.
It's crazy because when you look at it, the ADHD medication, a lot of these medications that are very, you know, commonplace nowadays to give a child, you're basically giving a child meth.
Yeah.
That's ultimately what it is. You're creating a meth habit for a child from almost birth. But I do want to get to Toshio's book.
Let's do it. Yes.
So
Going with what you were just saying, but this was written by Bill Cooper, William Cooper, in his book "Behold the Pale Horse."
So wait, can you explain a little bit? So in your book, you have different excerpts from different books, or you?
Well, it's got quotes by lots of other authors and researchers, you know. And this is a chapter from the book UFOs and the New World Order Agenda. And the title of the chapter is Agents of Deception, and what the deception that's going on in the world right now, especially and a lot of it I think is entering the conservative movement and the Christian movement because you know, we talked about destructive, you know, the destructive psychology of the left, you know, they want to just annihilate everything. But then that's the mind manipulation for the left. But they have a separate agenda, the spiritual forces, the New World Order, whatever you want to call it, for the conservatives as well, you know.
Yeah.
And I think, well, I was going to read the quote by Bill Cooper.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So he wrote this in 1991, and 8 years before the Columbine massacre, in his book "Behold the Pale Horse," and he wrote, "The government encouraged the manufacture and importation of military firearms for the criminals to use. This is intended to foster a feeling of insecurity, which would lead the American people to voluntarily disarm themselves by passing laws against firearms. Using drugs and hypnosis on mental patients in a process called Orion, the CIA inculcated the the desire in these people to open fire on schoolyards and thus inflame the anti-gun lobby. The plan is well underway, and so far it is working perfectly. The middle class is begging the government to do away with the Second Amendment.
That's crazy. This
Yes.
is 91 that
This
he
was
wrote
91,
Yes.
and the guy he was murdered. He also predicted the Osama bin Laden on an interview with the CNN. This was 2001, 4 months before his death. And
Wow.
yeah, he has a quote about that. He's saying that in the last thing he says, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it says some doofus jerk off reporter with a camera crew bosses right into his hideout, Osama bin Laden's hideout, and interviews him. Remember that interview with Osama bin Laden?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, be prepared for a major attack. And he said that on the Hour of Time broadcast, June 28th, 2001.
Wow.
Now, I have a
Yeah.
question. I saw this pop up while I was driving. Did CNN only cover one Trump rally? Is that true?
During the whole election?
Yeah.
I don't know if they covered any. I remember
Because
when,
someone said the only one that, I mean, this was a video, so
oh,
maybe
they only covered the one
ChatGPT
where he got shot?
Yeah.
I
And
wouldn't
that's
be too
very
surprised.
suspect
Yeah.
because remember what happened with Roger Stone?
What happened with him?
Remember the raid with Roger Stone and
Yeah, how
his
CNN
ring
was there.
Yeah, and his ring was there, and it showed the guy from CNN like putting his equipment a half an hour before the raid. That means
They
the
know.
government is our media. Everybody should look up the Smith-Mundt, M-U-N-D-T, Modernization Act.
Well, isn't that's I forget. It's Project Mockingbird.
Yeah,
Right.
Mockingbird Media. Yeah,
And I've seen things about it and about how CNN may be implicated in it. You know, Anderson Cooper apparently before he got the job at CNN
he
got
was an
training
intern.
with the CIA.
Yeah, he was an
That's what they
intern
say,
for the
yeah.
CIA. That's
Yeah.
the truth. And he's one of the Vanderbilt family.
Yeah.
Which I think could be quite satanic. They could be part of the Illuminati. And I know people are like, oh, don't say that. And this is another interesting thing. Andrew Weishaupt that started the Illuminati.
Adam Weishaupt, yeah.
Yeah. He was a Jesuit. He was a trained Jesuit. And look at Fauci, Jesuit. Governor Brown, Jesuit. You know, and this new Pope, he's a globalist. He was against, President Trump and J.D. Vance because they don't want illegal aliens invading our country.
Yeah, the new pope. I don't know about his politics. He just seems a little bit all over the place, and it's always interesting to me how you can be a Catholic or a Christian leader and kind of abide by or follow any sort of liberal logic or policy and be critical of Republicans. He was apparently a registered Republican, and he's being critical of J.D. Vance, who's I would say the highest holding office Catholic in the country, right?
Yeah.
And is very, very much very devoted to his faith, and I think represents Catholicism pretty well, right?
Better than the Pope does. That's
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean the Pope before him was, I want to give this guy grace and like time, to do stuff, but the Pope before him, Francis, was just absolutely. He was a communist, and he was evil. And
he made his own 10 commandments, for gosh sake, on climate change.
And he was
take the bus.
And I
Well,
think-
you're not taking the bus. You're flying around in private planes.
and I think it's part of the reason why Catholicism itself has lost so much of the influence that the church had globally, because they've injected so much of the politics, especially of the left, into church doctrine. And you see it. I mean, I worked for the Catholic Church in New York for a few years. And a lot of the church leaders there, like Cardinal Dolan, a lot of them are they're Republicans. They're
Okay.
relatively moderate to the right. There's some things that they would probably skew to the left. But
Okay.
in LA, in California, everybody with a Catholic church, they're all like far left.
Well, not all. There's actually someone that I talked to that is a priest, a
Yeah.
Catholic priest, and he's actually a strong constitutionalist. But I asked him questions and he can never answer my questions.
Yeah.
I said, why do we call priest father when literally Jesus says don't call anyone father but the one in heaven?
Yeah.
Why do people kiss the Pope's hand when we're not supposed to kneel to any man?
Yeah.
We only kneel to God. Look at Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They wouldn't kneel to the king,
Yeah.
Nebuchadnezzar, and he threw them in the fire, and there was 4 that were in the fire,
And God
which
saved them.
means Jesus was there with them, That's why it's shocking to me, some of the stuff that's being taught in the Catholic Church is just not biblical.
It's not, and it's a lot of it was. I think a lot of it started a long time ago when the Roman Empire institutionalized the church, and they went from actually representing the philosophy and the principles of Christ, and then started more focusing on bringing in as many people as possible. That's where all the practices of bringing in saints and having saintly statues, it was to appeal to the Romans who were polytheistic.
Yeah, because they say Constantine, he still brought it, even though he said he converted to Christianity, he was still bringing in all these Gnostic, things, and praying to the saints and Mary and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I grew up. My family's very Catholic. I grew up in the Catholic Church. But
I just asked ChatGPT this, so I thought it was interesting. So it's true.
CNN has. I'm just going to read what this says. So you search, the CNN only cover one Trump rally. CNN has significantly reduced its live coverage of Donald Trump's rally since 2016. In 24, the network aired only one of Trump's rallies live, the event in Butler on July 13th.
Hello, people.
Of course,
If we cannot put two and two together. I mean,
that's so
CNN
crazy.
should be called Crime News Network. Crime News Network.
Because they're actively.
I mean, literally. Okay, so you cover the raid on Roger Stone, and you cover Trump being assassinated.
Yeah.
I mean, this is sickening.
Well, I thought for a while that they're part of like an intelligence operation. They're 100%.
100%. This right there, if people don't understand what's going on, this is the wrap-up smear. Like, remember Nancy Pelosi and the wrap-up smear? Anybody that hasn't seen that, go just put Nancy Pelosi wrap-up smear YouTube.
Yeah.
I mean, these people tell you what they're doing.
Which is satanic in and of
out of
itself.
the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. God's saying, listen to what they're saying, because they're telling you. Like when Bill Gates says, we're going to lower the population through vaccines. Listen to him.
Yeah.
He told you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in my book too. It's called Healing the Earth Spirit.
There you go.
Well, I have to wrap it up. This has been a great conversation. Thank you so much. So yeah, if you want to share your social media or whatever information on how people can find you, feel free to.
Yeah, so my IG handle is Q is a psyop. And what else? Oh yeah, so you can, if you want to get a copy of the book, either the fourth chapter, which is Agents of Deception, which I think is the deception that's also playing into the conservative movement right now. And also the entire book, if you want the entire book, it'll be ready in like a couple weeks. UFOs and a New World Order Agenda. And you can email me at onagamil@aol.com. ONAGAMILL@aol.com. And you can just email me and say you want a book. And,
cool. Yeah. And Shiva, how can people find you?
First off, I've got to plug the Beverly Hills Freedom Rally, which is bhfreedomrally.org. bhfreedomrally.org. And if you want to find me on Instagram, it's Shiva, SHI, V as in Victor, A, 4, FOR, Justice. And if you want to find me on Facebook, I have 2 pages, but get the one where my hair is straight, not the one with the red hat, because that's the one I use more often. And it's under my name, Shiva, SHIVA. My last name is Bagheri, spelled Bag, B-A-G, her, because I know my gender, H-E-R, and I at the end. And what else can we plug? I think those 3 are the best way to reach me. And message me if you guys want to come to a rally. We're going to be doing one with Chloe Cole, the detransitioner.
Yeah.
That will be in probably July. We might do it the end of May. I'm trying to change it because I found out there was like a big revival that same day. And I like those revival people to come to my rally too. And I hate to do something that's on a day where I like to go to the revival too. You know?
Are you thinking of doing it in West Hollywood again?
I don't do West Hollywood. Brandon wanted to do that. Because they don't really protect us there. So I do the Beverly Hills Freedom Rally usually at Beverly Hills Garden Park. And by the way, that thing about, Mayor Bass, I was very upset because they have a municipal code where we couldn't be within 500 feet.
Yeah.
But where was a municipal code for the homeless guy that took over the sidewalk?
Yeah.
So they're ignoring that one, but to protect Mayor Bass,
Yeah.
You know, you notice it's rules for thee, but not for me.
Yeah, they had
Always.
everybody move down the block. I remember that.
Yes.
We were like on the corner over there.
Wish we had got
you were
more.
you were
we
there?
got,
Yeah, I was there.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got more visibility there, which kind of worked out for us.
yeah.
But it was just weird. You know, we had this homeless guy screaming because we were waking him up at 4:00 in the day.
Yeah.
I was like, you need to go to work.
Yeah.
Okay. Like you're a young man
Yeah.
with all your limbs. Okay.
Yeah.
I have friends that don't have limbs down here and that make more money than I do. Okay.
yeah,
There's
yeah.
no excuse.
And I remember a lot of people were being very supportive.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people driving by, honking their horns, like, hey, you know.
Yeah. And then one that went down, I said, "Are you an illegal alien?" "Oh yeah." And I was
Yeah.
like, "Well, that's why you don't want, that's why you're."
Which kind of gave me hope, because I do think that there are a lot of people who side with the conservative movement. It's just they're like the quiet
quiet ones,
majority.
yeah.
They're not really out there like doing what the most like Democrats.
Yeah, California's more red than most people think, I think.
I would, the going statistic is that Republicans are outnumbered 3-1, right? And that the non-party preference are about 30% as well. That if enough non-party preference and Republicans vote, that we can flip the state.
Yeah.
Right.
And if we can get rid of
voter
the
ID.
illegal
Exactly.
voters too,
Well, I think it goes a little beyond that. I think the non-party preference people are all Republican.
Yeah.
I saw,
Yeah.
I don't know who explained this to me the other day, that if you don't re-register or something to vote, they immediately put you as non-party preference if you're registered or something. There's something, so that's how they get the Republican numbers down.
Ah, interesting. Wow.
Yeah, I have to look into it. I'm just like trying to remember
Well, there
it. but-
are some people that said that they voted and they're like, I don't know why they changed my party preference. I'm a Republican. They did change it.
Yeah.
To non-party preference. And
Yeah.
they said, I was never, never checked any box to do that.
Yeah.
So there's so much shady stuff going on here in
lot.
California, but we're
Yeah.
going to change that.
And I appreciate you guys doing it. You guys do really good work. I do recommend going to one of Shiva's rallies. I recommend going with her to UCLA, or at least watching her live streams, because it's good to see those conversations. And that's really the only way we're going to change this, is having those conversations and being there and showing people that we care about the country, that we're not monsters, and that we have the better ideas.
Yeah, like love thy neighbor as thyself, not kill the infidel. Hello.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Shiva, Toshio.
Of course.
Appreciate
Thank you so
guys.
much,
Thank
Dennis.
you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take care.